Hello there, welcome to Junket Jam Live. I am your host, Christopher Albert. My very special guest today, though originally born in Massachusetts, is a New York City native, comedic writer, and stand-up comedian, known and lauded for consistently delivering an outstanding act with exceptional polish. He is a master at the craft of not just joke writing, but an immensely giving performer. Combining his distinctive sense of humor with the complexities of the real world, along with his cultural observations and own personal experiences dealing with mental health challenges, his fearlessness of being vulnerable has allowed him to quickly make a name for himself. In fact, in just a little over a decade, he has carved a budding comedy career that has seen him featured on projects on NBC, MTV, Comedy Central, Adult Swim, E!, SiriusXM, and most excitingly, a contributing comedic correspondent on the multiple Emmy-nominated and winning Full Frontal with Samantha Bee on TBS. Even still, he's a comics comic, using his vast platform to create opportunities and showcase the talents of other noteworthy comedians, including the music video roasting show, Super Video Brothers, co-hosted, of course, with Dylan Stevenson, the comedy showcase, Comedy Outliers with Brandon Collins, and the unique, entertaining comedy showcase, Decepticomics. And along with the success of his critically acclaimed comedy web series, Can't Stop, Won't Stop, he has starred and co-starred alongside the likes of Sashir Zamata and Phoebe Robinson, who we all love, amongst others, in numerous viral videos amassing over 10 million plus views, which means I only have 9,999,762 more views to go to catch up. On and off stage, he's an active advocate for mental wellness as the host and producer of the You Good podcast. He diligently works to destigmatize the conversation of mental health and illness amongst his peers and audience. He was named one of Rooftop Comedy's Comics to Watch, Caroline's Best of New Talent, and a featured act in the New York Comedy Festival, the Lucille Ball Comedy Festival, and the San Francisco Sketch Fest. His commentary has been described as smart, sharp, and hilarious. Joining me now is writer, producer, stand-up comedian, advocate, and activist, the one and only Mike Brown. Hey, Mike.
Hey!
And we finally got through that, didn't we?
Through it. That was the greatest intro I have ever heard.
It is an honor to have you on. Thank you so much. You are originally from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
However, you were raised in Queens.
Yes.
Before moving to Harlem.
Yeah.
A unique time to be a child in the 80s. What was childhood like?
Oof, okay.
Real quickly.
Yeah, real quick. Okay, I'm like, oof, let's go back into the September 23rd, 1988. Young Mike Brown. Growing up in Queens, I was in Rosedale. So growing up in Rosedale was a fun time, but it was also like really hard where I grew up. It wasn't like people were selling drugs. I just like grew up across from I think it was like a immigration holding facility.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know that until like years later. But I thought it was just like regular jail. It was like, oh, you're putting immigrants in here. Okay, you guys are a little crazy. And then when I moved to Harlem, it was old Harlem. Very black Harlem.
Yes.
There wasn't a no-ha, a so-ha.
No. You were from a working class household?
Yeah, working class kind of household. My mom was the first one in the family to go to college.
Yes.
So she got her job and it was a thing for her and she understood, I guess, corporate America world. And my dad he is from Jamaica. So he's Bumbleclot. He has a different way of the way he brings kids up is a different type of software programming because he programmed me for Jamaica. I'm running on America OS,
You were a chip.
Yes, I am a chip.
In the scheme of things.
You're damn right. Chip off the old block, I know what I'm saying. Boop, boop. Hello to all the Jamaicans out there.
So I want to ask you, did you ever then feel othered by your own peers?
Man, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I always was brought up with like a lovingness, so you just like share love to everybody, and sometimes that seems
suspicious.
It seems very suspicious. Yes. It seems entirely suspicious. Like, why are you loving people? What do you want? It's just like, no, just have a good time. Yeah. Just put love into the world. So I always felt weird about that. And I think that that's how I honed like my comedy, because I was always just like upbeat. I was like, hey, bring it up, bring up the love, bring up the vibes.
That's your job, is to lift people's spirits.
It's the whole
whatever's
thing.
going on in their life.
See, I would say here, now we're doing your show, and I'm not going to turn it on you too much, but when we were like doing the mics up in Harlem, you always had like the comedy presence and all that in you too. You know what I mean? And it's so beautiful now to see, like, man, Chris, like you got it. You've always had it. And now it's like, oh shit, you got it.
I think that the trick is it's knowing it.
No, yeah, you have to like kind of just like own it. Like, okay, this is what we're doing, and it's a weird thing, because I think that, and I really believe this, for anyone who's doing stand-up comedy, been successful and going through it, you always have that otherness, right? Mm-hmm. And you feel it, and you're just like, all right, I'm gonna lean into it, no matter what.
But I think we're just having these conversations now about leaning in, and about knowing what that means. Yeah. Before doing stand-up, you did sketch writing, you went to college, you did creative writing, fiction, with a focus on narrative, whatever the fuck that means. But you wrote funny stories, but you didn't always feel like you were using your comedic talents to their full potential. Your journey that catapulted you into stand-up was a tragic one, right? Yes. You had a friend, Mike.
Yeah, Mike Machoki.
With his loving fiancée, Nia. They had an engagement party. They had been together for 5 years.
5, yeah.
You spoke to him the night before that tragic event. Tell us a little bit about that.
Mike has been my friend for all throughout college. It was like a decade of time at least. And I just remember a decade specifically because he was on Twitter. We were on Twitter together, and we were doing like the 10 years ago hashtag challenge. Yeah. I remember just going with it, and we were just like roasting each other and sending all these things. Before he passed, the last conversation I had with him was, hey, I think I'm gonna get into stand-up comedy. I think I'm gonna get into comedy. I don't know what it's gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna be just stand-up. I don't know if it's gonna be sketch. I don't know but I'm doing this. I told him, and it was the first time I shared that with like anybody really. Like a few people, like I brought it around, but he was the first person I told it to. And he paused for a minute, and then he was kind of like yelling at me, like, yeah, like what's taking you so, do it. The next, it was like really like maybe 3 days later, everything happened.
You began, we all have, your stand-up career in the midst of trauma and pain. Loss, actually. Yeah. Was that at all challenging to, because you're starting this new endeavor, was that challenging then to be like, oh, I still need to be funny?
You know what? It's interesting because like I've been in therapy for like a year, and I've like kind of got through some stuff, and part of it is it wasn't as challenging because it's like I felt I had the blessing, but I also was able to be like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with a lot of these sad feelings. I'm not going to deal with any of the reality of it. I'm just going into super joke mode. Yep. Everything is great. Joke, 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 joke. And I've always been able to do it. Joke, 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 joke. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Yeah. And it took time, and even just like things in my career where I saw like, oh, I didn't deal with some of this trauma and some loss from all these other things, and I realized that I was preventing myself from being the best version of myself.
So Mike, we've got a lot to talk about.
Okay.
So why don't we take a break?
Cool.
Let's go to camera. Oh, we're already on camera one. Thank you, camera one. We'll be right back with more Junket Jam Live and comedic genius, the one and only Mike Brown. Stick around.
Said comedic genius. I thought Paul Mooney was just